Blessings, good evening. Someone was talking to me today and they said they're practicing mindfulness more and more, trying to apply it in their daily life, which is very difficult because life can be busy and we easily get distracted. But one result of their practice is that they notice how tiring and wearisome life is when you become mindfully aware of everything, or more mindfully aware than you were before. You might call this the process of awakening. It's the way we translate the word Nibbana sometimes, or what the Buddha realized. He awakened to the truth. And one of the main qualities that will lead to that awakening is the cultivation of mindfulness, clear comprehension of what you're doing every day. You notice when you're more mindful and you really pay attention to things, even very ordinary, repetitive or habitual actions, they can be quite tiresome or wearisome. Something like eating food. Normally when you're not so mindful, you get lost in the taste, the flavour, the ingredients, and maybe socialise while you eat. There's a whole excitement around food, and then sometimes it stimulates us, sometimes too much sugar, too much spice, too much one thing. But all of that tends to cloud us, cloud the mind, as we get lost into the mood of interest, excitement, or whatever reaction we have as we eat. When you practice mindfulness, you're paying attention just to the act of eating, even though the food may still be very tasty, good food, but you notice everything else that's happening as well when you're mindful. So you notice you're lifting a spoon, cutting and preparing food, lifting it, putting it in your mouth, chewing, swallowing. Noticing things like you eat too fast, then you can bite your mouth, or you have trouble swallowing, or you can have some physical issues. You eat slowly, still things get stuck in your teeth. Gradually your stomach gets fuller, maybe even you eat to the point where you don't feel very comfortable. You're uncomfortable when you're hungry, you're uncomfortable when you're full, nothing is right. And the whole action is almost like a chore, isn't it? The chore of eating. And so much of our life is like that. You start paying attention, you realize things that often we talk about as though they're enjoyable activities. They may not be under the power of mindfulness and wise reflection, just observing, looking. A lot of what we do is kind of tiring, wears us out, repetitive. But that's the nature of existence, isn't it? You've got to go to sleep every day, then get up. Most people have to go out and work to earn some kind of living, so you've got the things you need: food, accommodation, clothing, healthcare. If you're young, you go to study maybe, you still need to study in order to get a job later. We travel, we get in cars, get on buses, on trains, go here, go there. Often the things we do are very repetitive and quite tiring. That's life. The word we use in Buddhism is Samsara. Samsara is like that. It's a kind of cycle. Usually they refer to samsara meaning like the cycle of birth and death. You're born as a human, as a baby, then you grow, you get old, then you die. There's one cycle of samsara. But the Buddhist teaching is that the whole story doesn't end there. You die and then you're born again, whether you're back as a human or in a heaven realm or a ghost realm or hell realm. Well, this all depends on karma. Of course, teachings on samsara like this endless round of samsara, life after life, death after death, it's hard to believe at first if you have no direct knowledge of it. It sounds more like a story, a fairy tale, a story. And you may even feel that to believe it is foolish. But then you can also study samsara much closer to home. Just one day in your life is like mini samsara. So many teachers like Luang Por Cha, Luang Por Buddhadasa and many others encourage us to practice mindfulness and watch samsara at work, as it were, on a daily basis. The process of the cycle of birth, aging, sickness and death is really going on every second of every day. Because this body is changing all the time, aging every moment. Cells are being born, dying every moment. The body is changing from moment to moment through every day. And more subtly, your mind is changing all the time. One moment of consciousness followed by another. But we're fortunate, we have the Dhamma. You know, what is the greatest gift you can give someone? The gift of Dhamma. And we're fortunate, we're born in a time when the Buddha's gift of Dhamma, the truth and the teaching and the practice that we do, he explained that, taught that, gave us this great gift. And we can use that to understand samsara, even on this mini samsara, on a daily basis, how to deal with it, how to become aware of it or awaken to it. They say when the Buddha gave his first teaching, the Dhammacakka Sutta, at the beginning of what we now call the Rains Retreat on Asalaha Puja, Venerable Kondanya gained the Dhamma eye. Sometimes people say the third eye, but we say the Dhamma eye, meaning the inner eye of insight, wisdom, into this round of birth and death, cause and effect, cause and result. He had insight into the conditioned nature of existence for a human being, meaning an insight into not self, into impermanence, into dukkha, the unsatisfactory nature of existence, and into not self, the fact that everything arises dependent on different causes and factors. This body, your mental state, feelings, constantly arising due to different causes and conditions and then passing away. And what we call a self, a solid self, is actually a delusion. This body is not a self, it's a collection of component parts that arise through different causes and conditions and then pass away. Our mental states, our moods, how we feel, what we think, these moments of consciousness are arising due to preceding moments of consciousness. Even though we say my mind, my thought, my feeling, That's a delusion. There's no person or being in control or owning these things. That's a delusion that we believe in. This is what Venerable Kalyano understood. And so we say he became a stream enterer, a Sotapanna, hearing this talk, the Buddha's explanation about the Four Noble Truths in particular. But his friends hadn't yet. They listened to the talk, they weren't yet quite there, but no doubt they gained a lot from listening to the Buddha. They say on subsequent days after that full moon, then the other four ascetics, there's 5 of them together, living together, contemplated the Dhamma and one by one came to their own realization. Some of them would stay in the place that they were practicing. Some of them would go out to collect food every day and bring food back to support the others. So the way monks live together, they support each other, help each other. So some would be, as it were, on retreat, contemplating the Four Noble Truths and becoming noble ones in the process, supported by the others. And they'd take turns in this, so each one got a chance to go on retreat. By the end of the week, they'd all realized, at least the first fruit, Sotapatti Maggapala, and stream enterers. Then the Buddha gave another teaching, the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, the teaching on the characteristic of not self, just to kind of complete his teachings for this first group of his students who were already very wise and very peaceful and just ready to understand the Dhamma. He taught them to develop further insight into their own body and mind, what we call the 5 khandhas, to see that they are all what we call conditioned things that arise and pass away due to changing conditions, and they shouldn't be taken as self. When we take them as self, we suffer. And it's suffering because it's a delusion. If you take something to be yours and it turns out not to be, you suffer, don't you? Because you can't control it, you can't keep it, you can't make it the way you want. If you can understand and see that it's not self, then it releases you from this delusion. Then your mind is free, not trying to control and own everything. But this takes a lot of practice to see, to know. But like Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Buddhadasa would often say, well, you can just start on a daily basis, practicing mindfulness, observing, investigating the truth every day. Basing their teachings around the teaching on dependent origination, the way things arise, independence on different causes and conditions. So what the Buddha taught was, well, due to our karma, we're constantly seeing things, hearing things, tasting things, smelling things, touching with our bodies, and then memories and thoughts pop into the mind all through the day. This is going on. And much of the time we're not even noticing. Things just happen. They kind of happen, or it seems by themselves, but actually there's different causes and conditions behind it all. But when you start to apply mindfulness and observe and investigate and look closely, then you notice things going on. So like you notice when you see something, this will give rise to a feeling, pleasure, pain, or maybe just a neutral feeling. But that's going on all the time. We're not always seeing, sometimes we're hearing, tasting, smelling. As you practice mindfulness, you notice things, you notice the feelings, the tone of the experience, the feeling of that experience. Whether it's just a memory of old stuff, or a current thing that's happening to you or arising into your consciousness, you notice. And the Buddha said, well, what you notice, you should ask yourself, what is this feeling? Who owns it? Is it a person, a being? And you can see, well, if you see something you like, something desirable, attractive, you might get a pleasant feeling arise. It could be very subtle, minor kind of passing pleasure, or it could be something very deep, longer lasting. Could be pleasant feeling, could be unpleasant feeling when you see something you don't like. And this can change literally from moment to moment. And again, normally we're missing it, aren't we? But when you start practicing mindfulness, you notice things that you haven't noticed before. A good one is like, when you see something, not only do you get a feeling arise, accompanying the act of seeing, you also get a perception arising. So a typical one might be you're seeing, you're looking, and you see somebody in the distance. They may be walking towards you or just moving around doing their thing. Maybe your first perception is, I don't know that person. So you feel quite neutral. Mindfulness can show us this, can't it? When you are paying attention, you're observing yourself, you see this image, maybe there's a certain desire to want to know who is that. But then when you don't recognize any familiar characteristics, don't know them. So you feel kind of ordinary, maybe loss of interest. You wanted to be interested by looking, then you don't recognize them, so loss of interest. Move on to something else. But maybe that person moves forward or closer to you, or you move closer to them. Maybe your perception changes. In a very short space of time, you now seeing this person, you do recognize them. Oh, from not recognizing or not being familiar with their features, the way they are, who they are, suddenly they do become recognizable. Maybe you recognize that person as someone you like. So again, interest, pleasant feeling perhaps arises. Start thinking about who they are, their name, who they are, what their business is, what your connection to them is. Maybe a whole stream of thoughts will come up based on the feeling, the perception and the seeing. All of that you can be mindful of and say, this is this person. If it's someone you don't like, also a stream of feeling, perception, stimulating different thoughts, ideas, memories, probably more unpleasant because you don't like that person. You've already identified and attached to them in some way as unpleasant, an enemy or someone you don't like, don't want to see. Occasionally even you recognize wrongly, don't you? You see someone as your friend or someone you like, someone attractive. You may not know them, but they're attractive to you, but then they get closer and then, it's not what I thought it was. They change. They don't change, it's your perception changes because you're closer, you're able to identify different features in what you're seeing. So maybe from being a friend they become an enemy. Same person, but your perception changes. Or there's someone who's attractive, you get closer, not so attractive. Or there's someone you thought were ugly or unimportant to you and then you get closer, they are attractive or important to you in some way. It can change. The same visual image, but now like coming into focus when you look at something from a distance. Maybe it's just not clear, it's blurry, and then it gets closer. Now you identify. But even then, it can change from moment to moment. And all of that is feeling, perception, being stimulated by seeing, and then the next step in the whole process is what we call tanha, craving. maybe desire, like them, want to get closer, look for longer, or maybe don't want to look away, don't want them to see me, or just want to get away in some way if you don't like them. But this is craving arising. If you're not mindful, there'll be a movement of your mind in one direction or other, and fed by all kinds of memories, details coming up in your mind, and a mood, a feeling of perhaps of pleasure or displeasure. And that's going on all the time, not just with our seeing somebody or something, but it can be with hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, and so on. It's going on all the time, every day, all the time. So this is like mini samsara at work. Ajahn Chah used to say, you see something you like, you're born into that pleasure, the liking. And that hardens the craving, the tanha hardens into upadana, attachment, clinging. If you keep looking and you look without mindfulness, without insight, over and over again, and this is not over just in one moment, it may be over many days, years, then craving hardens into clinging. It becomes faster, quicker. The attraction arises quicker and is bigger, has a bigger impact on your mind perhaps. The aversion arises quicker, bigger impact. Could be to a person, a sound, a smell, touch, taste, any kind of sense contact, and just memories in your mind as well. It can be quick. It's like a well-trodden pathway. If you know the way to go somewhere, you don't have to think about it, you just walk there, don't you? Once you know the way to a place. Your mind is like that. A well-trodden pathway, and your mind goes to attraction, or goes to aversion in a split second. The perceptions arise, the feelings arise, the mental proliferation takes you off a train of thought, thinking and reacting to that person and all that sense contact. This is samsara at work, mini samsara. In a few moments, samsara has arisen and you've been born into liking or disliking or interest or boredom, excitement or sadness. This is going on all the time. We become a certain way, what we call becoming, bhava. Clinging gives rise to becoming. Becoming is, what we decide to do at that moment. So you become attracted to something, you look again, maybe, because it's attractive. You become caught into that little world of looking, being attracted, being absorbed into something that's interesting to you, desirable, something you want. So, say for a male, probably the thing you want most to see is a female, if we're honest. If you're a female, the thing you want to see most is a male. Not always, but statistically it's probably true. So what happens when you're caught into looking at something you like, you keep looking. You're interested. Absorbs you. If you're a monk and you keep looking, say a female, then what should be happening is that, I'm a monk. Hiri-ottappa arises. Sense of shame, because maybe you're looking with a mind of desire, lust, defilement, craving, hardening into clinging, hardening into bhava, becoming. How do you deal with that? Or establish mindfulness and bring up the sense of shame and aware of, this is unwholesome, this is unskillful, so you look away. So sometimes in the old days, when Ajahn Chah was alive, a monk would be in the monastery, a pretty woman would come. Ajahn Chah wouldn't look at the pretty woman, he'd look at the other monks, the junior monks, the young monks, see how restrained are they, how mindful they are. Maybe there'll be one monk who just lingers too long looking. And then the monk would look at the pretty woman and look at Ajahn Chah, and his eyes would meet with Ajahn Chah's. Failed. Failed the test, failed the exam. Practicing the Dhamma is like that. It's like a constant practical exam, practical test of your mindfulness, your insight, your restraint, your hiriyottapa. That's why it can be quite tiring practicing the Dhamma on retreat, or if you're a monk or a nun. There's a lot you have to learn and practice, and it's constant. It requires vigilance, heedfulness, what we call appamada. Appamada is the way to the deathless. Pamada, heedlessness, no mindfulness, no wisdom, no hiriyottapa, leads to death. Meaning the death of the Dhamma, the death of leads to attaching to things that are impermanent and another round of samsara. Whether it's mini samsara, born into more suffering for the day, maybe you see or hear something you like and then it dies on you because you've clung to it. So then you got seeking for more, wanting more, not happy, not content. Or from lifetime to lifetime, attached, then you die and the attachment leads to more birth. So what did the Buddha say? Well, he's given up with attachment and becoming, no more becoming for me. That was his gift to us as humans, unenlightened humans. He said, there is actually a way out of this round of samsara, the round of suffering. Endless birth, aging, sickness and death, birth, aging, sickness and death, life after life, same old problems, sometimes getting worse. Whatever suffering you've had this life, you probably had it worse in the past, and you may have it worse in the future as long as it keeps going. But there is a way out. It's the way of practicing the Dhamma, developing mindfulness, developing insight. So when the desire comes, the desire to see something you like, hear something you like, establish mindfulness and you let it die right there. Samsara can end right there maybe. If there's enough mindfulness, enough insight into the three characteristics, so just let it end right there. Same with aversion, let it end right there. If you're mindful enough, you're getting angry, just let it drop right there. Otherwise, we've got to carry on with another round of samsara. So one day is actually many rounds of samsara. Many turns of the wheel of samsara, the wheel of dependent arising. Seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, liking, disliking, wanting, not wanting, craving, clinging, suffering. That's why we have to keep practicing. Doesn't really matter where you are. You can be in a monastery, at home, in the forest, in the city. These same truths are applying, aren't they? Samsara isn't limited to a time and place. It's ongoing. It's more a question of what are you doing about it? Are you letting samsara just go on and on and on? Or are you sticking a stick into the wheel, the spokes of the wheel of samsara? As one monk said, every time you establish mindfulness, it's like you get a stick and you stick it into the wheel can't turn. Sometimes the wheel is so powerful you put a stick into the spokes and the stick breaks and the wheel carries on turning. So powerful. Craving and attachment, acting out of ignorance is like that. It can be so powerful you can't stop yourself. Even though you might vaguely know this is wrong, this is leading to suffering, you still carry on. Following greed, lust, anger, delusion. But if you develop strong mindfulness, strong insight, maybe you can actually put a stop to this cycle. First of all, the mini cycles of samsara, day by day, ultimately nibbana, the end of samsara. So, a few reflections on samsara for you tonight. I'll leave the talk there.